I will call the meeting of the Conservation Commission, April 17th, open. And I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the March 20th meeting.
Motion. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And our first on the agenda is a new public hearing for 1 Ames Drive. Yeah, all right.
Frank Ladham's on his way here. He said he's gonna be about 5 minutes late. You have to get the cards for the butters. From his office. You should be getting any second.
Being that we have a full plate, if you don't mind, I'll skip on to the second one.
No, I can do it without him, I think.
It's up to you.
You want me to do that? You wanna go on to the second?
Yeah, we'll need the cards before we can.
Okay.
That being said, we have Vitz Way. Yeah. I will read that into the record. Under the Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40 of Mass General Law is amended, and the West Bridgewater Wetland Protection Bylaw Rules and Regulations. The West Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing the 17th of April, 2018, in the McDonald Brown Conference Room, 65 North Main Street, or notice of intent filed by J.K. Holmgren Engineering on behalf of Doug Larry Enterprise Rent-A-Car for the construction of a commercial parking area and rental car storage within the vicinity of a BVW and its 100-foot buffer zone on Vitz Way. And we're open.
Stand behind you, I'm sure I'll speak up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Farrier from Holmgren Engineering, representing Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Green cards?
Yes.
I'll take those. Thank you.
What we have before you tonight, folks, is a notice of intent for property at plots 11, 12, 13, and 14, the very end in the west side of Vitz Way, directly across from Enterprise. Their offices are up in the front, and then they have their larger parking lot that you folks had approved a few years back. So this is the property directly across the street from that. And what we're looking for is permission to build a parking lot on that side of the road, similar to the previously approved one. This property would hold 816 cars. We have filed with the planning board. That process is on the way. Plans have been sent to their consultant. We haven't received anything back, but it's just been a few days since everything was sent out to their consultant. So we're working with the planning board on that issue. Obviously, with this situation, we have a couple of different wetland areas that are associated with the river in the back that continues to run in a westerly direction around J.P. Noon's property and then back out to the main drag. Dealing with that, we wanted a 50-foot buffer zone in locations. We have 5 detention basins shown. The property has previously been cleared, mostly stumped. Groundwater is a little bit high, so we are bringing in a little bit of fill to get the property up above the groundwater and also to provide some separation from groundwater with our detention basin. So we do have 5 detention basins proposed throughout the site. All of them end up discharging into the 3 separate wetlands on the property and eventually gives us the zero net looking for on the property. We do have siltation protection proposed at the 50-foot buffer zone in the limit of work, and there's also a chain link fence proposed around the limit of work as well. That's really just a quick review. There's just a small, almost a shed towards the back in the middle of the property, right here outlined in gray, just as a kind of a guard shack almost more than anything. No utilities running out there, so there are no structures, no sewerage, no water heading out there, nothing like that. There will just be electricity going to the shed there just to turn a heater on and turn a radio on, I guess. So that's all we have proposed on the site as far as structures go.
John, do you have anything?
Yes. I was not asked to witness any test pits on the site for any of the drainage structures, stormwater management systems that they're showing on this plan. So I'm recommending that a date be scheduled where they can get there. I can observe where I believe the estimated high water table to be. And if necessary, at that point, they may have to redesign to raise the drainage above the water table. And if they have to do that, then at that point, we would have to have a continued public hearing anyway. I would recommend at that continued public hearing, if that's the case, that they have revised their plans, or if it's satisfactory to me where the water table is based on their design, then I'm gonna recommend a 53G, independent of the planning board's 53G, to review this.
Okay, you said that all the design work or all the construction would be outside the 50-foot?
I believe there's a little bit of grading right over here in this area, but everything else is outside of the 50-foot buffer zone.
That'd be that storm basin number 3
Right.
that would actually be within the 50-foot?
We
And
just have the little corner of it right there.
the compensation for work within the 50 is gonna be replicated where?
We have basically all around that area, we have planting shown between the wetland and the 50-foot buffer zone, and also back in the northern side of the property, plantings in the 50-foot buffer zone.
In the 50-foot?
Yes.
It can't be in the
Yeah,
50. it
you
has
have to
be
stay
outside.
You
out
want 'em-
of.
Okay,
Yeah.
we figured that plantings would be better in the buffer
And if
zone,
you
but-
can create the basin without going into that 50, the 50-foot is a pretty sacred no-touch unless there's a extenuating circumstance why we need to grant the waiver to actually work in it.
I also have another question that
Yep.
I didn't put in the report, but just occurred to me. The 100-year floodplain is on this property.
Yes. It falls over on that side. We have, in the process of filing a letter of Hampton with FEMA.
I saw that. Now, if, what he just said is that they understand that there's a 100-year floodplain on a good part of this property, and normally that would mean that if they filled in a floodplain, they've got to create the compensatory storage that they've destroyed in their design somewhere else. And it sounds as if you're going to argue that case with FEMA.
Right, exactly. So the way we kind of submitted this to you folks, we have a phase, basically a phase 1 and a phase 2. Phase 1 would be this property here. Phase 2 would be the parking spaces behind the existing metal storage building. That's the property that has the floodplain on it. So going through FEMA typically takes somewhere around 60 to 90 days. Sometimes can take a little bit longer, but usually it's right in that ballpark. So we're kind of hoping that we'll have it resolved, right about the time you folks are ready to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions. We can, I guess, talk different ways of how to do it. Where it's phase 2, we obviously wouldn't construct that until we received an affirmative from FEMA on that situation.
How many parking spots you want?
Total, it's 816.
And what happens if you don't get the 816?
Can you do it with less?
For like replication areas, or what happens if FEMA says no to the
Well, if,
floodplain?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is not to have vehicles parked. That's, I mean, we move them in, we move them out, but at times we get flooded with vehicles off-season. So the more parking spaces we have, the benefit. Again, we're not in the business of storing, we're in the business of renting. So hopefully they're not sitting there. Hopefully we won't have that many
So
cars sitting there.
you'd be able to do it without 800 and...
Well, we'd have to divert, it would be very expensive because we'd have to divert vehicles way elsewhere. So our next parking lot is in town in Boston, in Chelsea, so it would be tough for us to get vehicles in there, so.
Can I, as in a butter,
Yep, yeah, I was gonna open that up, so, at this point, any commissioners have questions?
Are we paving,
Yes,
Okay,
and it's automobiles primarily,
yes,
just storage?
right.
Yeah.
Basically, just to explain, I guess what they do, they're stored here. When the Enterprise in Rainham says they need 3 cars for tomorrow, they go from here to the store in
It's
Rainham.
not an
and-
active rental
Right,
facility
exactly.
then?
It's
No.
just basically a hub, and from there they get spread out to their different stores.
Sure.
I have another question. Across Vitz Way, on the easterly side of Vitz Way,
Yes,
going through the water resource aquifer protection hearings, because this is on an aquifer, I think they had to put in some special devices in case there was any leakage of fuel or fluids from cars. What are you proposing on your plans?
I wasn't aware that they did anything across the street because of that, and we don't have anything other than just the deep sump catch basins where we have the hooded catch basins where they have them, the sediment floor bays, the gabion baskets within the detention basins to trap any kind of sediments like that.
That may become an issue during the review by our 53G or the planning board's 53G.
question?
Hi, yeah, so my name is Justin Weiner, and I'm Chairman Emeritus of Shawmut Corporation and its affiliate subdivisions, Topaz and Onyx. And in no way, are we not supportive of developing that land. But if I can just take a moment so you'll understand the sensitivity that we have about this. We're a 102-year-old, 4th-generation family manufacturing business. There aren't too many of us able to survive anymore. We supply the automobile industry, and we try to impress them that this little dinky company out in West Bridgewater is worthy of going into every car and ceilings and things. And we bring people here, and we tried when we moved here from Stoughton in 1982. We got 56 acres. We thought, we can't build a fancy building, but we'll get the best landscape architect, and we will show that you can surround it and it will be nice. So actually the land was the worst of the land here because it had been disrupted and the topsoil taken off to use fill. And with the cooperation of this board and a very complicated thing, we made meaningful ponds and we put things in, and we hoped we would set an example for what would happen on the street, but unfortunately economics changed and this is what the street is. So we're a little island holding out with our corporate headquarters, and we're concerned that we don't want to be turning brown on the edges. We have a whole forestry management plan with the state, and we stock the ponds. And I hadn't been out onto Vitz Way for a while and hadn't actually realized till this came up that we already had a major paved area with a lot of cars, and now we're talking about another one. I know that the drainage ditch that you're looking at was all of this was a delicate match of balance for what we were doing going down into the areas by the river. And I'm concerned that number one, I had hoped that we wouldn't be clear cutting all the way to our property because we're getting pretty thin there. And with 800 cars parked there, we have a chance of the wind sweeping down through then a very narrow barrier onto our ponds. And I'm worried that there be some sort of a study. I spoke to the planning board. I guess it is going to go out for peer review in terms of the water runoff that will include the other paved areas, because this completes the link between where we're clear cut all the way to Manley Street, all the way down through what seems to be a graveyard for old cars and trucks in Noonan's property, right down to the wetlands. And so what I hope maybe that when I came here that I might prevail upon you to in some way think of not putting a containment area here where we're clear cutting again, you have to put the containment area again up against some pretty significant looking trees that we have here. And I just hate to think of the salt water working on those. And I just wonder, number one, that if we do this, and you will do this, that we see a complete study, a comprehensive study of the 100-year storm runoff, so that it doesn't overflow and end up and destroy whatever we've tried to put into it. But ideally, if there was any way in which the focus in this could take this containment pond away and leave the stand of trees that's there, it would really make a big difference to where we're sitting in our little area and headquarters.
And just to point out, his property is just to the
Right.
north of the,
Yeah.
All of this right here at the
Yeah,
end.
all of this here. And there's the drainage which goes along our fence, which we created as part of our plan review years and years ago. And also, in our place, we do have containment for fuel runoff and other things going into our ponds in a very specific way.
that will be part of the ultimate decisions on the orders. If it's granted, we'll have that kind of protection.
And it's good that you're in telling us how important that is to you, so that these folks, might possibly take all that into consideration. They want to be good neighbors, I'm sure, so.
And we do, and we know that the gentleman has owned this property for a long time. And nothing is happening with it, and we're delighted to see that it is an
Sure. enterprise.
It's certainly a company. I usually use them when I travel. They deliver right to your door.
Yeah.
But, we're just surrounded with pavement and with either trucks or cars.
Sure.
And I worry that if the runoff, even if it doesn't go to us, if the runoff goes into the back lot of Noonan, I know everybody has looked at it and says it's safe, but I just drove in there a little while ago. And it's some awful looking stuff there, and as long as it stays there, it's fine. But if we have a 100-year storm that floods that,
Yeah.
we would lose a lot of our environment.
Sure.
Anybody else have any other questions, comments? And knowing that we're gonna have to continue it, is the next meeting gonna be long enough? Or do you need longer to get the testing and scheduling all that?
The next meeting would be probably sufficient for me to get out with them to do some test pits. And if it does require changes, then it would have to be continued at that meeting. So you want to continue to the 1st of May?
Sure.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to continue.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded to continue the 1st of May. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Good. Thanks for your
Thank
time,
you.
folks. See you in a few
You're
weeks.
welcome.
Do you want a motion for G53?
Thank you.
Not yet.
Talk to you soon, Jim.
I spoke to you on the
Right.
Did you say 92?
Yeah.
I really was hoping.
The plan?
Oh, keep-
You want to put it back in?
I don't know, as young looking as she was.
Just keep what you're doing, it's fine.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, 1 Ames Drive? All right.
Mo,
Sure.
92.
Just shows you Gene's, and he's the chairman emeritus.
That does
Yeah,
it.
me too.
Is that manufacturing at Shawmut or just headquarters?
They do manufacturing there. I'm not sure exactly what, but
Something to do with automobile interiors.
I'll take those, and I will read it into the records. Under the Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40 of Mass General Law is amended, and the West Bridgewater Wetland Protection Bylaw Rules and Regulations. The West Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing the 17th of April, 2018, in the McDonald Brown Conference Room, 65 North Main Street, for notice of intent filed by Riverbend Land Surveyors on behalf of William Adams to construct a dwelling, driveway, utilities, septic system in the vicinity of a bordering vegetative wetland at 1 Ames Drive. And we're open.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Frank Riverbend Land Surveyors, and I have here with me Mr. William Adams, the property owner. Mr. Adams has owned this land since 1986, 1987. He built the remainder of the subdivision that abuts this property. This is the last remaining parcel of the subdivision. It was originally slated for several lots, but because of the wetlands and the sensitivity of the area, the overall plans have been revised and cut down to one lot. We have been before you, or this property has been before you previously with the wetland line. Mr. Adams has been in here numerous times with it. We wish to propose one dwelling. It would be set on the upland portion of the lot. There is a small ditch that separates the upland portion from the roadway area. We would be crossing that ditch with a 12-inch drain pipe. I believe we have met with this board in past times discussing whether or not this ditch was a valuable wetland or not. And we are honoring it as a wetland, protecting the flow through there, but we are asking relief from the restrictive buffer zones that would be against it so that we can keep the home up here a little closer to the front. Were we to honor the 100-foot buffer zone, the home would have to be shoved considerably further to the north. That would actually result in a greater disturbance of the overall area. Prior to getting the final permits for this lot, we do need to conduct 2 additional soil test pits. We have not done them at this time because, again, we wanted to come through the commission and get our initial approval so that proposed siltation controls could be erected at the locations approved by the commission and the land cleared prior to going in and doing any more disturbance of the soils.
Would you mind moving over? We the abutters can't see the.
If you wanna stand right on that side would be fine.
Thank you very much.
You can keep your back to us, is fine. That's,
Yeah.
we're good.
We've got the,
So our goal is to obtain approval from this commission, get the siltation control barriers up, then clear the lot and conduct the remaining 2 test pits that will be required by the Board of Health prior to commencing construction.
So the house is basically, half of it's in the 50-foot buffer.
Yes, it is. Yes, I would say close to 50% of the home is within the 50-foot buffer. That includes the garage area. And that is the buffer from this small ditch through here.
You're proposing a paved driveway through the whole thing?
Yes, we are.
And at one time, you're thinking about putting 6 houses there?
It's 3.
3 houses, where would that, three houses
That
gonna
was
go?
approved for 3 houses, already, 3 lots.
How long ago was that?
1988,
Yeah, quite a while back.
Big difference.
yeah.
John, I know you have a punch list.
I have presentation drawings to show the commission. First of all, I'll start off with the previous plans that the commission has seen in the past for the informal discussions that have occurred. Had this house rotated so that it was parallel with
Yeah.
this property line over here and
Right.
not jutting that far into the 50-foot buffer. And I believe the conversations were that the commission would allow some disturbance of that 50-foot buffer as part of the front yard to this house. That was 90 degrees to what you're seeing on this plan here. What this plan does is it brings the corner of that garage within 13 feet of the top of the drainage swale there, which then means all of the vegetation and the earth will be disturbed along that whole length of, even though he's not showing it that way, but from a practical point of view, everything from the crossing here all the way up and past the back of the garage will be disturbed. So what I did today, oh, let me put this up first. The area that is outlined in green and crosshatched with that red is what would be disturbed by this project in the 50-foot buffer. And again, going back to the informal discussions, the commission did say that they would be amenable to some disturbance of the 50-foot buffer, but you can see that that's quite an impact on that area. If they rotated the house like the original informal discussions were based on, you can see that that area outlined in green and crosshatched is far smaller now, leaves quite a bit of room between this green line, which would be the limit of work based on this plan, and the top of the drainage ditch, leaving vegetation there to filter out any pollutants that are coming off of fertilized and insecticide laden grass, and also animal waste that invariably occurs in people's yards. And so I feel that this plan that I created is a far better plan and less impact on that whole area. And I would recommend that the driveway itself goes from Ames, the end of Ames Drive, up to the buffer here, and then it's all farther back than 50 feet. So that overall the amount of paving is a lot less. So it's basically the same size house, everything's rotated. The garage would be entered in from the side, what is shown as the side. In this particular case, it would be the side entrance of a garage instead of the front entrance. And it still leaves a sizable amount of land all the way around the house for a typical yard. If I'm not mistaken, I think I laid it out with roughly 35 feet on the ends of the house and back in front of the house. And so it becomes a substantial yard for people to put in their pools, their swing sets, their gardens, and be able to throw and play ball with their children in the yard.
What's on the distance from the house to the edge of the 50 there?
On this
On
particular
John's
plan,
revised plan?
Yeah, looks like about 3 feet.
this is a 20 scale plan, so every inch is 20 feet, so I would say roughly 8 feet.
That the front of the house or the back?
That's the front.
Front.
So basically, this would be the front of the house.
Yeah.
This would be the entrance into the garage. This would be the back. And
Right.
so people would drive in here, and visitors could park in the driveway and go into the front of the house. Basically, the same way they.
And we need to allow access, is that access with the driveway to buildable land? Are we under that type of an edict?
Yeah, I mean, they have a developable spot, so they
Yeah.
have a right to develop it. But
Right.
as I said to the last applicant, we have a 50-foot, we're pretty
Right.
firm with the 50-foot. When you came in and conceptually said this is what we're thinking about, I think the commission as a group looked at it and said, okay, if you're leaving it as a vegetative area, you're not paving it, you're not putting structures on it, yeah, we could give you some lawn out of that 50-foot or some vegetated areas around the house. But to all of a sudden put a structure, put more pavement.
It's really getting pushed in there.
Yeah,
50
you,
foot into it.
Can I say something?
yep.
Sure.
This ditch we talked about is a drainage ditch that I put in. And we talked about it not even being a viable wetland. And John walked that site and looked at that site and looked at the vegetation, and there isn't any really growing in there. So-
I don't think that's quite an accurate poll.
Didn't you say to me there was completely dry and there was hardly anything in there at all?
No.
Okay.
I've been out there when the power company's done work, and there's been 2 or 3 feet standing water at times, so I know it does get wet, and I know it holds water.
North
And
of there, it's
back in the day when this was
considered-
developed, if it was maintained and kept as a drainage ditch, we'd be looking at something totally different. But this has been let go over the years. The wetlands have gone in where they naturally want to start to be developed and reclaim what they want, and so it's a wetland. I mean, we have to look at it as a wetland. Yes, it was originally a drainage ditch. It was set up as a drainage ditch,
It still is a drainage ditch. It's a drainage ditch for this subdivision.
Right.
maintained as a drainage ditch,
And it-
but
it
it's
connects 2 wetlands, one on the north and one on the south.
Right, at both ends.
And that's why it needs to still have some protection for water quality and
Right, it
so
was
forth.
created in case it overflowed at this upper end, that it would give it a place to go. But I've been there, I mean, if you went there 2 days ago when it was pouring out, there was probably water in there, because it would naturally flow into it.
It was doing
But
what it
that's
was supposed
dry
to.
95% of the year. I've been there all different times of the
There's
year.
also a reason though too, back in the 80s when you could put 3 houses there, now you can't.
Right.
What's the reason?
Well, the reason is, one, the high tension wires, there's an easement for the high tension wires, and then there's wetlands down this end.
And there's wetlands.
So you might be able to get 2 in there, but then it doesn't, you have to
So
put a
there's-
road in, the cost wouldn't be effective.
So there's there
So
are
we're making it
wetlands there.
one,
So,
and I was offering, to give an easement also to the Concom.
back then.
That's what I offered, yeah, that's still available, and that's,
Yeah,
that's been,
that would be mitigation for allowing the disturbance of the
Yeah.
50-foot.
right.
I guess the issue becomes, I mean, there are criteria that make it a wetland. If that's what it is, that's what
Right.
it is.
And there's 2, you'd have, there's an
I
acre
mean,
or so
up
down here.
above,
Okay,
where that stream you say is a drainage ditch, I mean,
yep,
either it's a wetland or it's not.
Well, going northerly, you do get into some very significant wetlands, and also southerly, there is some very significant wetlands. Just as your agent indicated, the ditch is basically a connector or equalizer between 2 rather significant wetland systems. Now, we do realize that the proposal that we have does put the home within the 50-foot buffer. Looking at the overall area, though, we felt that placing it like this would result in a less clearing overall. So yes, more in the 50-foot buffer, but less clearing total and less destruction of the natural environment by placing it here than spreading it on out further north, making it a longer area this way.
and it's
those
also
are
it's on
main
top of the
basic.
septic system.
So here's a little explanation. This is their limit of work as they proposed it. This line right here is what I suggest they be giving to have that 30 to 35 feet of yard space beyond the thing. So this isn't significantly, by making it parallel with the property line, isn't gonna significantly add more disturbance northerly, because naturally, in order to grant the waiver, you're going to have a conservation restriction on the rest of this. So there will be no disturbance. As far as the septic system goes, this yellow, orange rectangle is the same footprint as the one that they show on the plan. It still hits one of their test pits. There is a 15-foot separation between the septic and the slab of the garage, which only needs 10 feet, so I gave them another 5 feet. There is room 35 feet on the back side of the house. There's at least 35 feet from the front of the house to the limit of work that I'm suggesting, which still leaves about 20 feet to the top of the bank. So that 20-foot strip would act as a filter strip. So if you look at the overall plan that we've been looking at in the past, with the plan that I just showed you is depicted here, just a different scale now. This is the development site This is the area that would be conservation easements to compensate for allowing the 50-foot buffer disturbance, which virtually is all wetlands anyway, with a area over here that potentially might have a little bit more outside the 50-foot buffer, but not enough to really make a useful yard out of it.
One thing I did notice on the proposal that the agent had, the septic system is under the driveway. Although not completely prohibited by Title V, that's strongly discouraged. And Title V wants you to do everything possible to keep the septic system out from under a paved travelway. Our proposal did keep it out from under the driveway.
I
That's
will
for-
add that it is allowable though. All they have to do is put a vent system on it and it's fine. And a vent system is just a pipe.
To my way of thinking, it's the only way we can build this is that way. To go the other way is too much encroachment from
My
my
way of thinking is,
vantage
if you
point.
want at least a house, that's the best way to do it.
What if I propose putting a pipe in then, in the drainage ditch, and piping that area here, that is the drainage ditch anyways.
Pipe into what?
It's a wetland, so
You're not supposed
It's
to be,
debatable if it's a wetlands.
that's
We
what we
flag,
have
we
to
accept it as a
determine, yeah.
wetlands, and we accept it as a flag, but I'm not 100% sure that if they did soil tests and everything else in there, that it would come out and prove that it's a wetlands. We just accepted it because it was there and it wasn't gonna affect us, we
No,
didn't think.
I understand.
so you'll be pumping the water out of the ditch?
I'm sorry?
You want to pump the water out of the ditch?
No,
He wants to
I-
put a
no, I'm
pipe in
saying
and cover it
to
over.
let it pass, so it could pass under it freely without any restrictions, and that way there, it wouldn't be affecting it. I mean, that's what it was, its
Well, you gotta do
intention
that-
was.
You're gonna do that
drainage.
even for the driveway though. You're gonna do that with the driveway, you gotta put a pipe in.
I was gonna put a pipe where the driveway is.
Yeah,
I was gonna say extend the pipe so I'm not interfering with
And
that
cover it
buffer
up.
zone
and cover it up.
and cover it.
Oh.
I mean, it's 2 feet wide,
You get in the driveway, I mean,
yeah.
it's,
Anybody in the audience
Can
have
we put a
questions
replicator?
before
Is there
I?
enough to replicate it? No.
there's no replication in there.
So, I mean, I'm looking at saying if you're set on having that much paved driveway, well, let's look at a porous surface instead of a paved driveway. I mean, mine's an 880-foot gravel driveway because the Conservation Commission, before I became a member, required me to do that. And it's that way forever.
I
So
also
maybe we'll
churned
look
it.
at something else in this.
I churned it because one of the comments that was made was that the driveway was so long, that if I churned it, we could shorten the driveway. That's why I did that.
So this
Probably.
proposal shortens it even more.
There's more driveway here.
No,
Than if it's here? There isn't?
it shortens it, yep.
Very
We
short.
did have a little bit shorter driveway. That was because we've got the septic system under the driveway.
I mean, I'm also worried about the loss of vegetation that may or may not be quote-unquote in the wetland, but it's vegetation that's within the 50-foot that if we're gonna allow it to be developed.
Well, I'm thinking of a lot of hearings that we've had where we have wetlands, and if you did that, they go the wetlands, you could certainly pipe the water away, but your wetlands would
Disappear.
disappear.
So you've gotta compensate for that somewhere to develop within the 50-foot. I
Well,
mean,
we are showing a compensatory area for the region that we're piping.
Yeah. It's in the 50-foot buffer, but it needs to be adjacent to the wetland, so that would be an allowable or permittable.
Yeah. You had other,
I had concerns that, has the planning board approved the turnaround at the cul-de-sac, let's call it the cul-de-sac?
Yes.
When?
Back in 2014, I think.
They may need to look at that again, but regardless of whether the planning board's approved it, this town has a stormwater bylaw, and you're obligated to treat the runoff from new construction, roadway construction, in some form of water management. So you're gonna need to look at that as well. I'll give you a copy of
That's
my,
new, right?
my report.
That's, I believe that came in after this was approved.
No, this is you're filing it as of what date was it?
No, the roadway was, you're discussing the drainage for the roadway. The roadway was approved back in, what year was the roadway approved by the planning board?
I'm not sure on the exact date, but it might have been 2012 or
Yeah,
2014.
which would
or
predate, that was the
2010.
roadway approval. Which would
When did you
predate.
file for this project?
We
March
recently
12th.
filed for the home construction, but the road is what I understood that you were discussing then. But the stormwater
I am,
management,
but-
the roadway has been approved.
But is the road within 100 feet of that swale?
When we were going before the conservation, the previous board, we went for 2 years.
Right.
And then they said they preferred we go to the planning board to see if we can even do this before they make a vote. We went to the planning board at that point and got that approval. And we came back to the board and they rejected it. And that was another whole issue that didn't, pan out properly. But that was approved back then for that reason. Then the person that was buying it backed out of it. It sat for a while, and I decided that let's move it forward and get it done. So we started again with the conservation end of it.
Well, without asking for a vote of the commission members, I would say that your project was never approved by this commission, and you filed on March 12th, 2018. And that includes getting to the property, whether it's over partly existing roadways or not, but you haven't constructed that portion of Ames Way, so your permit to construct that would have to come from this commission, probably as well as the planning board. So in order to get what you're looking for, from what I'm seeing this evening, is do some stormwater management on the new Ames Drive construction that you're proposing. The driveway and the house configuration, as you see somewhat up there on that plan, that's up to you to design it. I'm not designing it for you, I'm just giving you a suggestion, and you'll be on your way. So I don't know what the issue would be if you complied with all that, why you would even hesitate to not just proceed in that direction.
In putting the road in, the driveway,
The whole,
You gotta connect Southgate
right.
Avenue, is it?
I had this proposed.
Yeah, so you gotta construct
and it
that,
was
and
approved.
it's within
All
100 feet of the
waivers.
wetland.
It had a bunch of waivers because it's just a driveway for one lot.
Yeah, but now, because you filed this on March 12th, 2018, you're subject to the stormwater bylaw, which requires some stormwater management. Now, that's gonna be up to your engineer to figure out what needs to be done to do it. It may not have to be too elaborate, but you have to show something.
Okay.
And then change the configuration of the house, and you're on your way.
Okay.
And again, they haven't voted, but that's how I'm sensing what I'm hearing this evening.
Now, what about the runoff from the driveway? Would that have to be would be an effect with that?
The driveway would be all right, it's the road
It's just the road
itself.
itself.
And then you, of course, you already proposed roof drains,
Yes.
so that's part of the stormwater bylaw.
You had a question?
Mr. Hay, if I'm following correctly, and Mr. Delano, right now, I live at 3 Southgate Avenue. Everything ends up from Southgate Avenue down in that area that Ames Drive that would be connected. So that's basically our swimming pool for about 4 months out of the year. That is wet, that area of the end of the street. So I don't know if that's what Mr. Delano was talking about, doing the water,
stormwater
the
management.
stormwater runoff, right? Because I wouldn't want to see the stormwater runoff into my backyard, because it's already wet enough out there.
When we walk out to our mailbox, we better have ankle boots on, because or else we'll be.
Yeah, I mean, if you can redesign that from my perspective and turn it, I mean, we're well underway to moving it forward, I think. But the other way, I personally couldn't vote for it, so.
Myself, me,
Okay.
same here.
I mean, I know you did 2 test pits. Have you done any more than that, or just the 2? I mean, if you go further to the north, what was the soils there? I'm just throwing this out there, if the,
I have not seen any test pits in that area. In fact, I personally did not conduct these two test pits that are shown here now that were conducted by another engineer, another soil evaluator.
I mean, if you
So
put the
I can't
septic
really
system on the
tell you
north
what's-
side of it, and then
I
that would
really can't tell you what's out there.
eliminate,
When were they done, the test pits?
I'm sorry?
When were the test pits done?
You can take that down.
I don't know, they were done by, maybe a year.
2004, May 27th, 2004.
Is there an expiration on those types of things?
There's nothing been done out there.
Since then.
You just come
Not
in
as far
here
as
and say
soil
you wanna
test.
put a house in right now. You just came in and said you wanna put a house here right now,
Yeah.
without even doing updated test pits.
No,
We don't, again, as I said in my initial opening, we don't want to go out there with the equipment because it's very dense. It's a lot of dense growth out there. To do the test pits, we'd like to be able to clear some of that growth out of there and go in, and to do that properly, we want to get the siltation control barriers up. So to get the siltation control barriers up, we'd like to get their location approved by this commission and the general construction approved before we go in there and do all the disturbance of the ground surface.
And there were test pits that were done in there back in the 90s that were in the same general area, and they were the same results, same water.
Same
elevation.
everything?
Everything's
Same results, everything?
almost all exactly the same. The material was good material, it was
Oh,
sandy.
I'd like to see some new ones, but.
Is
And
there,
again, if
is
you-
there a limit on, the most recent test pits?
They do not expire as long as they were conducted under the new Title V with soil evaluation. You couldn't take a test pit that was done back in the 80s, that was prior to the current
Right.
method of testing
Right.
that utilize it. But yes, they do not expire.
Okay.
Theory being the soil's the same.
And there was a septic plan approved also, based on those test pits, and that's expired.
but just throwing it out there, if you were to take John's plan of staying 35 feet from what is the drainage ditch and put the silt fence erosion control there and work your way back to say if you did 2 more test pits further beyond the proposed dwelling and put the leaching field and septic system on the northerly side, that would pull the house closer to the driveway to eliminate the 50-foot disturbances much. Turn this here, put this on that end. I mean, it's about the same elevations.
Yeah, it's pretty flat out there.
I mean,
You don't care which side it's on if you can.
if you want to avoid keeping it out of the driveway.
Yeah.
I mean,
And still have a yard.
and then you'd still be able to develop some of this. I'm just throwing 35 feet as an area to start with to get your silt fence in so you can get out there to do your test pits and your clearing and,
Yep.
I mean, would that be a workable solution to get forward?
That's what you need, right? You
I
need
mean,
a-
to,
where to start. So.
I mean, if you're looking at, I mean, I would, like everybody's been saying, if you can get that structure
Turned.
turned and out of that 50-foot and keep as much of the driveway kind of out of the 50-foot area. I mean, we're willing to say, yeah, you can develop that as lawn and grass area and something like that, but all of a sudden make it a totally,
So if I do that, then I'm not getting any kind of consideration for the buffer zone, right? So the board's not interested in the additional.
well, we're letting
wetland
you make a lawn area, we're letting you put a driveway through it, we're
in the
giving
buffer-
you-
In the 50-foot?
in the 50-foot, right off the bat. I mean, we're just saying, yeah, we're gonna allow that, which normally we would just say flat out, don't touch it, stay out of it totally. And putting the driveway in, you'd still have to replicate whatever area you were disturbing.
Yeah, which is what you're proposing on that.
I mean, we understand that you've gotta get a driveway in there, however it works to juggle it,
Yeah.
yeah, that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right?
So just to make sure, it seems as if you're a little unclear as to what they were saying about the buffer zone. They're still gonna have to grant you a waiver.
Right.
So you're
Right.
still gonna have to grant
To
them
get in there.
that conservation restriction on the rest of the land,
Right.
right?
Just requesting a less extensive waiver, basically.
depending on what you come up with, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd entertain a motion to continue to the 5th, or till the May 1st, our next meeting.
have any more questions?
Do you have any other questions?
What
Yes.
type of house are you building in there?
Oh,
Is it still with the same, like, you know, two-car garage,
Yeah,
brick
and
fireplace?
well, I don't, now if it's Trent, I'm not sure if I can get a two-car garage or not, but it's gotta be a Garrison or a Cape.
Like the house you built without the garage, without the little house you built as you drive in there that never had a garage? All the houses were
Which
supposed,
house? I built
John Costa's house, all the houses were supposed to have two-car garages, 2,000 square
Whose house?
feet,
One Southgate.
one Southgate. The little cape you built with no
On the
garage.
first one, the way in on the right?
Yeah,
Right, they were supposed to build a garage afterwards, but they never did.
who was supposed to?
The people that owned it, the people that bought it, had put off the garage.
But didn't you have to, whatever, the covenants say you have to build such and such a house, and then it never got built. A little tiny Cape got put there with no brick fire, no bricks, nothing. So you're gonna build this is gonna be the same as the covenant
This is-
supposedly in the
It's-
neighborhood?
Well, it's gonna be a nice house. It's gonna have 2.5 acres, 5.4 acres of land with it. And it was gonna be a nice house. I mean, it depends what I can fit in there now with it's churned.
Right.
I mean, it depends on what the lot's gonna allow to be in there.
And how far behind the high tension lines is the house supposed to be?
The tension wires are out here. So there's a whole wooded barrier between
Where's the
them.
high tensions?
The tension wires are out here.
Okay.
The tower somewhere, it's not shown on here, but it's through here. And there's a barrier here of woods, and there's a drainage ditch there that's
Right.
covered by the woods. This is beyond that. So you hardly see the house unless it's maybe the winter.
Right.
Any other?
So,
John?
I just wanna, again, when you say things, I sometimes get a little nervous that maybe you didn't hear everything I said. I took your same exact house, just
Right.
rotated
Turned
it.
it.
That includes the garage, the
Well, it makes it, the
L's.
way that you churned it, it may be great for the conservation, but it makes it undesirable to people when they drive up if all they look at is they drive into their garage. I'm gonna try to accommodate that and see what I can do with that, but it's gonna make it so it's gonna be ugly. And we're trying to make it a nice house and make it complement the subdivision. And that was the purpose of churning it, so they have a front yard and a backyard. Now they're gonna have a yard, they're looking at this neighbor's backyard. Now they're looking at the cornfield behind it. Because you're turning it this way. If that's the only way it can be, that's the only way it can be. But it's gonna look not nearly what it would look like if it was like that.
But you want a house in there though, right?
Excuse me?
You do want a house in there though, right?
I wanna sell
It's
this lot.
better, it's better than no house at all.
Right, well, yeah, I guess that's, yeah,
So you gotta do what you gotta do.
yeah.
May 1st.
All right, anybody else, anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion to continue.
Motion to continue, May 1st, is it?
Yep.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Same here. Rapping face.
Yeah, I've been seeing it.
Where are we at now? Oh, yeah, 22 Grant Street.
22 Grant Street.
Down she goes.
It is there, isn't it?
We're getting there. There it is. Thank
Oh, you
you.
didn't know they were color coded?
Keeping me on my toes. All right, I'll read this one into the record. Under the Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40 of Mass General Law is amended, and the West Bridgewater Wetland Protection Bylaw Rules and Regulations. The Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing the 17th of April, 2018, in the McDonald Brown Conference Room, 65 North Main Street, for a determination of applicability filed by Collins Engineering on behalf of Donald Adak, Jr. Trustees, AB Realty Trust, to decommission an existing septic system and install a new system within the vicinity of a wetland at 22 Grant Street, and we're open.
Good evening, my name is Dave Clinner from Collins Civil Engineering Group. I'm here today for a request for determination for 22 Grant Street. With me tonight is Paul, and he is the applicant owner, so he's sitting here if you have any questions for him. What we have here is a couple of areas that we're within and out. The yellow is the property line, the blue is the wetland line. The dark blue is a perennial, and then we have the dark blue for the first 100-foot riverfront and the second one for the 200-foot riverfront. We have the orange for the 50 and we have the pink for the 100. The system itself is going to be outside the 100, the SAS system. There will be some grading inside the 100. We are going to abandon the existing system, which is close to the 50 right here. That's just going to be abandoned. We're going to put in a tank to a pump tank and then pump everything out front as close to the road as we can get it. We do propose a siltation fence. It's going to start at an existing fence down in the back of the yard. It's going to surround the limit of work, and it's going to come right up along the other sideline, and this is where we'll propose our stockpile for our removal of material and for dumping of material. The system is going to be really almost flat. There's a 49, so it's going to be about a foot above the ground, and it'll be outside the 100, of course. This is all grassed area. This is all grass and lawn area, all previously disturbed area. So we're here tonight to seek a negative determination for RDA.
Is the old system a septic system or
The old system is a tank pit type system, and it's a failure.
is it?
Yeah.
It's failed.
It's failed. Yeah.
Well, how old's the house?
1916.
1916.
1916, I think was the year was born, when built.
You look pretty good.
It's fine to me.
John, I noticed you've got no issues.
No issues. This is eligible for a negative determination, which means no additional filing needs to be necessary because the work is within 100 feet. However, they're showing erosion control and such minor amount of disturbance in the 100-foot buffer outside the 50 that it's eligible for a -3 determination.
Anybody else have any questions? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Could I have a motion?
Oh, yes. Yep.
I don't really have any concern, I just was kind of talking to him, there's a little circle there that says stockpile, that's gonna be there for temporary, is that what it is?
Just temporary, where we
I
can.
just didn't want to get any wash over there because, you know, I'm really, on the other side, it's unbelievable, like Quake Brook, I understand it's gonna be attended there, because with this rain we just had, it's just unbelievable down there. I just don't want to get hit from this side.
Where they
No, I
get
thought
the
you did a
sewer
good
sand
job.
and stuff, and then we'll
Yeah,
have a silt fence in front of that.
Yeah, where you put the tank out behind the house there and you're moving around there.
Yeah,
I thought you did an excellent job and now you laid it out.
Thank you, thank you.
That's just stockpile for material.
That's just
So that-
stock, yeah, most of the material will probably be loaded off, but stock, like, you have to get the sand in there,
Right.
and then you
A
spread
lot
the
of
sand.
times they don't show that on a drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't see where it is, it just happens.
It just happens, it's happenstance, yeah.
We've been
A lot of
asking
times
for
there's
it
no
for a
room.
while, so, because sometimes it shows where it shouldn't be.
Yeah,
I mean, it ends up being where it shouldn't be.
yeah.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved, and I'll entertain a motion to issue a -3.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Continued public hearings.
Oh, yes.
We have Stony Road, Clark Estates.
No one is here. Let me just check on it, make sure.
Sounds like a crowd out
According
there.
to the menu, according to the notes, it's supposed to be May 1st.
Oh,
Right?
Well, I went to
Yeah.
the planning
Yep.
board anyway, so.
Yep, you're right.
May 1st.
good catch.
You do read those.
Okay,
Hey, I approve them.
Yes.
I read them.
let's see, Emerson.
No, I remember, I looked at your close the other Tuesday, no, Monday, or when you sent it out, I said, Stony Road, I said, I could have sworn, I said, you made the motion to May 1st.
You got a good memory, too.
Maybe you got the G53 results and wanted to go over it. I said, why would he do that without anybody in attendance from Stony Road?
Well, the bottom line is, and they'll let us know they've reduced the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. I went to the planning board meeting, so it's changed quite a bit.
Okay.
This is the one I missed.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, you're lucky.
Yeah,
I think it's a lot.
Darn.
yeah, you're lucky too.
I missed it too.
Yeah,
Did you?
quite, it's really.
Okay, 25 Emerson
One-
Ave.
Just one, so the two that's already there and then just one.
This one here is continued for
Yeah.
the DEP file number.
We got the
Which we
DEP
have.
file, and that was the only outstanding issue other than the certificate of compliance, which we're going to deal with down on the agenda. So I would recommend closing the public hearing and issuing a
Order of
standard order of conditions.
Anybody have any questions?
No,
Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And I will entertain a motion to issue the standard order of conditions. Mo's making the motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Steve second. Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. You're good.
Do you wanna sign those now, just to have those out of the way?
Yeah, we can wait
do
and do them
them
all
at the end.
at the end.
All right.
We will sign it tonight, though.
Yes.
Tonight, promise?
Oh, yeah.
Alrighty,
Thank you.
great, thank you,
You're welcome.
And we will issue the certificate too.
thank you.
You're welcome.
102 West Center Street. That is for additional parking drainage. And Let's mess up.
Did you get this truck started out there the other day?
I saw you out there jumping in.
I hadn't used it all winter, the battery went dead.
All right. What do we got?
Hi, Dave Clinton from Collins Civil Engineering Group. I don't know, about a month ago, I guess we were here discussing this. And we've came up with I put it in green. It's right along the erosion control. It's a no-touch area, no mow area, buffer zone. It's roughly 11,000, almost 500 square feet, 486 or so square feet. This gives us almost a 3-to-1 replication area inside for what we're disturbing inside the 50, especially with our stone driveway. I'd like to keep the stone. Tom Kennedy will put a border around it to keep the stone in, of course. And stone would just work really nice for getting this area where our underground drainage system comes out. It can go right into our stone driveway, and then we have a level spreader which allows it to spread over the grass evenly. It's already treated water. It's treated for 80% TSS removal, so everything will just move through the driveway and over the grass and into this no-mow area. I do propose on sheet 2, I think I propose the conservation signs. I see conservation posts and signs. There's CP and S signs. And they're roughly every 50 to 60 feet. I think what Tom would like to do here is maybe put some kind of fence between the grass and the actually no mow area, and then we could have those signs on that of some sort. And this is just the drainage here. We got to get this drainage. It's clean water across the driveway, and we're just going to allow it to flow across the driveway and then flow as evenly as possible out into the grass. So that's basically the changes that were made. This is a pretty substantial increase in area. I left a 4-foot grass strip around the shed just so we can weed whack and the grass doesn't come up on the building itself. And then it cuts right up along the 50-foot here all the way to the street. So that's about as much as we can propose for mitigation on this site as we can.
What kind of fence you wanna?
I don't know. It may, it may be an
That's his
8-foot.
idea.
I know. He wants to put an 8-foot fence up because he doesn't want to see it. I want to put a nice picket fence up.
That means you're gonna be paying those pickets, right, every year, is that how you go?
But regardless of the fence, the post will be there. The post and the signs for the
Well, I was just
conservation.
saying, you wanted to flow. I mean, I don't know. If it's a special fence.
Oh, he's not putting a fence up. I'm trying to sell him on it.
I did notice some equipment parked next to that shed though, right now.
We've
Yeah.
already talked about that we're gonna move that out.
That's all that area moved out, yeah. And this grass will grow up fast. I mean, this
Yeah.
grass is gonna be high by the end of the summer.
Isn't it all wet right there now anyways?
Not really, it doesn't really stay that way.
Really?
It goes quick, yeah,
Drains right out, doesn't it?
yeah, it really does.
I
John?
have a question. Typically, since there's no detail of the post on the plans, typically we call for white PVC pipe. You can paint it, but it's a PVC pipe with a sign on it. It sounds like you want to do something a little different. So in order to word it correctly in the order of conditions, what are you thinking?
Do you mind the PVC pipe? I mean, I would say a standard or.
Oh, the PVC pipe's all right then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I was trying to beautify it, but I can't talk.
With the fence and the post sounds great to me, but
Help enhancing it.
I mean, if he was really set on that fence and liked your idea, then I'd say, yeah, we could do post or fence with markers every 50 to 60 feet.
Same idea.
I mean, same idea, it's just,
That's the picture in my head. But yeah, they'll be the standard, at the minimum, the standard PVC post with signs.
Tom, maybe before coming into the meeting, you should do one of those mind melds in the hall with him so that.
Maybe we should talk to each other.
Thank God I came. I wouldn't have
you'd be having a fence right now.
You would have
You're all set, we just added a
the
fence.
Taj Mahal.
Other than that, I have no issues.
Anybody else have anything?
No.
All right, if not, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
It's good when somebody listens to what you have to say.
Second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. I will entertain a motion to allow work within the 50-foot.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor? And I will entertain a motion to issue the order of conditions.
I'll make the motion.
I will second it.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I changed the exhibit A on that.
Okay,
We're moving along faster than I thought.
thank you.
What did you say for the last motion?
Huh?
What did you say for the last motion?
Order of conditions.
Never to be back again?
Until you
Wanna
change
add
your,
on?
until you do another.
Out of everything.
Dave, when you go past Todd, would you tell him that he's up next?
They're up next?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, John, regarding the stormwater management rules, the contractor's been advised of all
it's on the town website, and we bring it up when they come in and talk about a project. I bring it up.
Because it's everywhere now, it
Yeah.
isn't just, so they need to be aware of it. Contractors when they're building,
What?
the new stormwater management rules.
Do you think
Yeah.
you should mention what's in that newspaper? Do you think for the public you should mention about the dogs eating leash on and poop bags?
All right. Excuse me.
All right, next we have Luke Estates Roadway and Luke Drive. We are back open.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Todd Pilling from Pilling Engineering. With me tonight is Alan Drunas, West Bridgewater Land Company. He's the applicant and the owner. So we went to the planning board. The planning board closed the hearing. They're supposedly signing the Mylars tomorrow night. So we are looking for the commission to also close the hearing. But I believe there's going to be some discussion.
So for a couple of the commissioners who weren't here at the last meeting, Mr. Pilling has originally designed the drainage to go through bioretention basins as part of the stormwater management regulations to treat the stormwater quality of it. And after a lot of discussions and revisions with the planning board to satisfy them, ultimately the planning board decided they didn't want the basins to have vegetation in it. They just wanted to be part of the lawns of the people who would be living in the subdivision. And to a certain extent, I can understand that, since there really is very little usable space around these houses for someone to have a decent yard. And if you're making the front yard where this bioretention basin is located a grassy area, it probably would be a usable spot. Unfortunately, at the last meeting, there was a split consensus, we'll call it. There was really no vote taken, but it was clear that 50% of the members present wanted to not get into a match with the planning board and disagree with the planning board and make the developer put the bioretentions in. And then, of course, there were 50% of the members in attendance wanted it to be done the right way. And so after discussing it for some time, I suggested that maybe if we discuss it with the full membership at the next meeting, which is this meeting, that we could come to a consensus as to how this should be handled. And in the meantime, I was giving it some thought, and rather than making them revise their plan, which the planning board is going to endorse tomorrow night, and start the whole process all over again, that you could order them through the order of conditions to create the bioretention areas at their discharge point at the 50-foot easement line, the 50-foot no-touch line. And yes, they're going to touch it and do some temporary alterations within that 50-foot no-touch, but the drainage system would be all vegetation that would be similar to what you would want in a buffer zone anyway, and it's much like what the apartments at Riverbend have. They have some basins right in the 50-foot no-touch over there. Actually, I think it's like 25-foot no-touch, but there's a buffer over there with a sort of bioretention basin there, and I say sort of is because we didn't require a bioretention, we required some type of basin to be in there. They could do that, and you would be able to get what you want without having to get back into a discussion with the planning board on what you want versus what they want. It's not probably the best way to do it, but it's an option. Or you could say, we'll approve it the way it is, or way the planning board, or you could say, no, we're not going to approve it the way the planning board wants. So you got kind of three options. Approve it like you want to approve it with a bioretention basin. Approve it without the bioretention basin so they don't have to go through another ordeal with the planning board. Or put it on, actually four options. Take my suggestion that we order them to put it in the 50-foot no-touch, which is going to be outside the planning board's jurisdiction. And I guess maybe the final option could be is put it on hold and have a joint meeting with the planning board and say, this is what is required, this is what the bylaw says you should do, and we understand your concerns, but how about trying to change their mind?
How much tying it up? I'm thinking option 4 is not where we want to go. Option 3, putting it.
We spent 6 months
Right.
with the planning board.
That's
so
why I want to get
I
this.
don't think you're gonna
Yeah.
convince their minds any more than I could, but.
Doing as John suggested, how much of a, moving it to the 50.
Yeah, we have 2 outlets from our bioretention basins, and they are right at the edge of the 50-foot. So planting plants where the water would be flowing from there to the 50-foot line would be 100 feet of vegetation.
And it's all by hand, there'd be no machines doing this, this is all, we can do this with a shovel and,
Right, I mean.
you know, there's no, it would,
Now, this is-
actually, what John had proposed, we'd be doing three locations, because there's also another outlet up here, just as, I'm
Oh.
sorry,
Oh,
this
there.
one up here. So, any place that there's, and the only time water would ever discharge in these areas, obviously, is if there was an overflow.
Right.
It's not in normal
Rain event,
circumstances.
yeah.
So, I think you'd be getting your treatment, and there'd be no disruption to your 50-foot, other than, one of my guys walking out there with a shovel and, putting in the wetland plants that would be in the order of conditions.
So we would be that would be the condition we'd be most amenable to.
So this is the water that's coming off from the road or from the basins into that, right?
Comes off the road into those
Basin
And then into
basins.
the wetland.
and into the wetland.
Well,
When it
If
overflows.
it ever, it'd have to be a
Maybe.
storm event for that to
Yeah.
happen, though.
What, for the water runoff from
No,
the
no,
road?
No.
it'd have to be a larger storm event than the system's designed to hold.
Because
So it's-
because the rain gardens are still gonna take a certain
Well,
amount of
Mr.
water.
Chairman,
And that's from the road.
If I
Yes,
can,
yeah,
just
off the road.
briefly, so there's 4 catch basins in the road. They come off the catch basin into a sediment forebay.
Yeah.
After the sediment forebay goes into a bioretention basin, like some of them like 10 by 20, 20 by 20,
Yeah.
but the size of this room, they're depressed down a foot. In the middle of it is a catch basin grade sticking up 6 inches.
Yeah.
So that first 6 inches, the water's all going in the ground. If we get more than that 6 inches of water, it then goes out the grate and discharges
Into
at the
that,
50-foot
okay.
buffer. The thing is though, because there's 6 catch basins for a 600-foot road, it's not a lot of water going into each one of these basins. So it's not anticipated that a lot of water is going to be flowing out of these. So
Even with all the rain that we've had.
yeah.
Let me just clarify something. You're talking about the roadway, but where are your roofs in your,
Yeah.
Roofs are separate.
All right, so the roofs, they're in yellow. These are
Yeah.
the roof infiltration systems that are on all the lots. But the front of the houses, the driveways and the front yards are going out into the street also.
so when you say a small amount of roadway, are you also thinking that when you're trying to minimize what that is, that you're getting the driveways as well?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, when I'm saying it's a 600-foot road with 6 catch basins. Normally in 600 feet of road, you'd probably only have 4. So because we had to go with small basins to make this work. You can't have a big giant basin in somebody's front yard, so we tried to go with a bunch of small ones.
And that's including the driveways.
Yes, I don't have the watershed plan with me, but yes, so the front half of the houses and the front yards is all going that way. Well, I mean, except for the roofs, they're all going into the roof drains, but.
Now, I understand that this is just for the detention areas, but the basins on the cleaning and everything, what was the thing that we agreed on for the cleaning? It was like a homeowners association?
Yes, yeah,
That
it'd
you
be,
guys have agreed on?
Yep, we submitted all the homeowner association documents,
So that, yeah, so at least everything's gonna keep flowing and nothing will be,
Right, it's out of the hands of individual homeowners, because it would be one person cleaning it, not 6 individuals.
but
because it doesn't
they're
work.
gonna be responsible for it.
Yes, they are.
but so the landscape company is gonna be cleaning all of them and doing the roads and all that.
Okay.
I mean, the homeowners are probably gonna be mowing the grass that's in these, but it's the landscape company that's doing the upkeep, if you will.
And that's what the homeowners are paying for too.
It is, but a lot of the damage that's gonna be done is by sand on the roadway. That's what's gonna be what clogs this stuff up, but there's not gonna be a lot of sand used in the roadway.
Now, is this, I can't remember, is this a private or is it?
It's public road,
It's a
but the
public road.
drainage is gonna be maintained by the homeowner
Yeah, okay.
association.
Perfect.
and
That's what your bylaw wants.
That's what I,
and one of the new
Like to
things,
see.
is that the order of conditions will require them, the homeowners association, to enter into a drainage agreement. And that drainage agreement requires them to do things, and if they don't, this proposed article at annual town meeting this year that we're proposing to put a lien on the property will help ensure that, that the town will be able to recoup their costs if they have to go in and do anything, if it passes.
I guess my question, because I wasn't here, is why the conflict between planning board and us?
I spoke to the
Is,
chair.
is the bylaw clear or not clear, or?
I spoke to the chairman, and he had sought the opinion from the DPW. And the DPW had indicated that they didn't want to be out there maintaining these basins on the front yards of these homes and be burdened with that. And subsequent to that discussion, I believe now the superintendent of the DPW is aware of the implications of not having the bioretention basins and may be thinking differently, but it's too late. I mean, this is
So this-
something.
Pretty far down the, yeah. I
But going
understand.
forward from here, we,
Why
we'll be ahead
maintained
of the
by the
curve on
town?
it.
Because it's part of the public
it's a public road.
domain there, or?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand why, if we're having the homeowners do it, why
Yeah.
the town felt
Was
like
willing.
that
Yeah,
was gonna
yeah,
be an issue,
yeah.
but,
It did come up at the meeting that they felt like the first generation homeowners
Oh,
would
that's what
be paying into the homeowner association and participating, but when you get to the second or third generation, that they're gonna stop going to meetings and they might stop paying into the kitty, so.
and the homeowners association might just go flat and not really be
But this is
viable.
where the lien would come in handy.
Yeah, exactly, I mean,
That's
how's
important.
that
It's a
gonna
legal
happen?
document.
Either
It's
that or
not-
not. Plow the
Yeah,
first
so how
snowstorm.
can you just get out if it's
You
legal?
can't do that.
I mean, homeowners is, yeah.
And actually, I think that's what we're
So
trying
that,
to do in the future.
Right.
How does that work in your development where, let's say, 6 years into it, there's a lot of brand-new people. Are they aware of the fact that you have a board and,
oh, yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So,
But I'm thinking in the back of my mind, not to get off the subject, but I'm wondering who's checking our, Really?
Is yours a homeowners association thing?
yeah. Am I? No.
No. Oh, really? What are you doing now?
We have a board.
Oh, okay. But I mean, you're doing the same thing basically what we're
Talking
proposing.
about.
Yeah, but I don't recall anyone coming over and cleaning any, we do have a big bioretention.
Yes, inspecting or checking it, it may not be
As
happening.
far as I know, no one's checking it, so.
well, if it becomes, let's say this one becomes an issue, and somebody calls and says, we've got problems. And
Probably a good idea, yeah.
and either, let's say this is 6 years down the road and
Right.
I may not be around by then, who knows?
Right.
But the person as conservation agent, stormwater agent for the town will go out and just determine that it's not being maintained.
Right.
They'll do some enforcement, which is within the bylaw. The first is warnings, so
Yeah.
you send out a letter.
Right.
Second is fines and so forth. And then if you have to, get the DPW out there to take care of it and determine what the cost is and lien it.
Sure.
So there is some enforcement power and some teeth to it, whereas prior to that bylaw that the town passed,
Mhm.
it was, yeah, we'll form a homeowners association, and nobody followed up on it. And I go back and I look at some of the.
Really? That,
Couldn't do
I mean, we're
special
very,
order
we
condition.
got rules upon rules, I assure you.
Yep.
But nothing, sounds like nothing being done.
But there's really no need for someone to go out there and, unless there's a problem. And
Yeah.
if there were, then that's when it would come to light.
Is that the way it's gonna be here too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we do have the O&M plan and stuff, which I don't know how old yours is, but the O&M plans and the SWIPs and all the rest of it that
10,
are in place.
12
It's
12 years, I
following
think.
it. It's who's following it. So.
And
Like I
that-
say, sand
that
is going to be the biggest killer here, and the intent is that there won't be a lot of sand used on the road. It's not high, steep road, or anything like that. It's,
no grades for it.
no, it's like
And that
1.5% at most.
drainage agreement has specific reporting that they must do. So if we don't get the reports coming in, and basically what I envision us doing is putting in the calendar that 6 months from the date of their last report, we expect to see another one, and the alert will come up on the calendar and say, Luke Estates homeowners need to send in a report, and if we don't get it, then we send them off a letter.
Good
So there
idea.
is some
Yeah.
management here that's necessary.
Well, technology makes it easier to do the reminders
Yeah.
and stuff
Sure.
too. So
The point that we need to keep in mind is that I'm not so worried about the sand, because when you look out in the DPW yard, you don't see any piles of sand. It's all salt. So this salt getting into those basins, being trapped by the bioretention basin part of the drain system, is going to really help in treating the quality of that runoff. If it's just a discharge to the wetlands, then you're getting all that salt right into the wetlands. Whereas this hopefully will trap not only floatable suspended solids, because you still will get some sand and particles coming off of the people's yards and things, but it's more what's in that water, the salt, any contaminants from vehicles and the pet waste in the yards and things like that.
No, sounds like we have a good solution.
So if you can live with John's plan, then
Yeah.
I think
That's a great solution.
right.
thank you, John.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I don't agree.
Please tell me you're joking.
That being said, I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Make the motion.
I'll second it.
Move in second. All in favor?
Yeah.
So moved. I will entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions for the amended draw. You're gonna do up another plan for that we'll reference, or how do you wanna do that, John?
I think that.
Or just do it
if
in the
we-
order of conditions?
I think the order of conditions will ask for a separate addendum type plan,
Okay.
so that his people can follow something, but it doesn't have to be approved by the planning board, just
Okay.
part of our
Thank you.
approval.
Yep. I'll entertain a
I'll
motion.
make the motion.
Second.
Move in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
I could vote for this one. Otherwise, it was gonna be a,
Don't,
yep, we got one more. And this is for the 5 NOIs for Luke Estate.
Yep, so we filed, for the roadway, the notice of intent, we kept that separate. We filed notice of intents for lots 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, because there's work within the 100-foot buffer on those 5 lots. What we submitted to the commission with the notice of intent was this plan from the subdivision set, and we highlighted the lot, and so you knew what it was. Because at the time, the road's been shifting and everything else, we hadn't drawn the septic plans yet. when we had this little bump in the road last time, I didn't go draw the septic plans because I didn't want to go there. So at this point, this is the plan of record. If the board wants, we can close it based on this, and then we could submit revised plans when the septic plans are done, or we can leave it open until we do the septic plans and get them in to the board. Whichever way you want to do it. It's
We'll leave it open.
okay.
How long do you think?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what have you got time-wise?
Well, we're probably talking, probably, well, I gotta get house plans, but you're probably talking a few weeks to get them
Well,
all
May 1st
done.
would be our next meeting. Do you wanna go the
Well, it
next
would be
one?
a few weeks for me to get them all into you.
Right.
And then, so it would be after that for the next one.
So
Yep.
2 from now.
continue it out to the second meeting in May,
Now, do you want
15th?
on the lotting plans this, or you want those separate for the subdivision, the plantings and the 50-foot buffer? You want to leave that separate from the lotting plans? You want to keep that as like a supplement to the subdivision, like an 8.5 by 11? When I do the septic plan for this lot, you don't want me to show the plantings on that, do you?
Better off with the road order conditions.
Yeah, it's gotta be separate.
Okay.
That way we don't lock that particular lot into good,
And we don't wanna wait for that lot
yeah.
to do this work, we wanna do that work.
Well, it's got to be done earlier, yeah. Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to continue to May 15th.
Make the motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now that spring's finally here,
Yeah.
Yeah.
hopefully.
Not yet. Close.
All right, thank you all very much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate your time and complicated matter.
All right,
Maybe.
just to make it easy, we have a gentleman sitting here.
Yes, yeah, I was gonna
And
say-
what are you here for?
I'm Nick Anderson. I'm with Nemasket Outdoors Group Incorporated, looking to do some volunteer work in town.
Okay.
We're a new group. This would be our first project. We had helped out the Open Space Committee with the trail clearing at Reynolds Landing back in January.
Mhm.
We got a good amount done that day, but we didn't finish it. We were hoping that we could go out there, use our group to promote our own trail clearing, go out and finish trimming out the trails that John had flagged when we were out there, clean up deadfall, and, take all the stuff we clean up, push it off to the side to delineate the trails, and just kind of promote it ourselves, organize it ourselves, and do it obviously all under the guidance of the Open Space Committee. And then in the future, maybe look at clearing deadfall from the river. I know if you drive down 106, there's a couple big ones down right there by Truman's Landing. Just open up the path through the channel so that canoes and kayaks and whatnot can get through. And just promote our work through Facebook and Twitter and all that, and try to raise more volunteers.
How do you propose to do the river ones?
That we'll have to figure out, especially now with the water so high. That's
Well, it's not
something
even
that
at that, I
really-
mean, just even trying to get down in there with, what are you gonna use, like a machine probably, or?
It'd probably all be by hand. I don't know how we remove the wood from, cutting it up and getting it off to the side is one thing. Removing
Even
it
with
from
big
there.
trees all that fall
Yeah, it's a
That's gonna
couple
be
really big ones.
by
now.
hand?
I know.
Cut them the hands, float them to the side, and off they, I mean,
That's
it,
kind of what we were thinking. Cut up the pieces small, push them off to the side, and haul them up, or if leave them on the bank as part of the habitat, whatever is preferred.
Case by case basis.
Yeah, one of those.
We've done policy on this before, that we have something.
We
to-
do.
I was gonna say, we had something at one point.
On river
that we were
cleanups like
doing the
that.
river cleanup. But
Yeah, I wasn't sure what the policy on that was.
So, what we envision is that, that if he says, I have a tree at Trukey's Landing, there's one in that vicinity. I would go out there with somebody from his group or Nick himself, and we would decide on a case-by-case basis how to handle it, whether by cutting a
chunk out of it, or
pathway through it so that their kayaks or canoes can go through, leave the tree in place, throw the chunks that they cut up right onto the bank, if it's good enough, or a lot of places it's pretty flat because it's a floodplain and they could just throw it into the floodplain and it would become part of the habitat for whatever's in that floodplain. So we can't really say with a blanket statement how this would be handled. It'd have to be, each site would be case by case. And if it became too much of a, like they needed to get a machine in, then maybe that's not something that we want them to do. But anything that they do is low impact. They came out and worked hard on the event that we had at Reynolds Landing to cut some new trails in. And they have the enthusiasm, we might as well allow it and not try to...
And encourage recruitment if anybody wants to volunteer to
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
not
join
try to-
them.
I bet Beaverton Woods could use a little work.
Oh, yes,
too.
yeah, that's got some problems too. And Nick and his girlfriend came out to Holmes Hill on Saturday when we had a burn the brush event.
Oh, I saw that when I went up there. I'm like, what's going on here?
I was waving
You
to
should-
you. I was ignoring.
I said, I'm like, I
Well,
don't know what's going on here. I was just too busy going somewhere else. I'm like, oh.
You should have stopped in, we
I
had
should have.
Samoas
I
and...
kind of went by and I didn't see anybody. I'm like, really, I knew anything. I'm like, oh, they just burning brush. Like, I didn't even see.
So we made Samoas and had some snacks while we were working, and it was a good day. So I just want to say that as far as the open space is concerned, because that's who was out there on both events, a good part of the committees, that they're really pleased that we have somebody that can do some of the work.
For sure.
So what do you want from us, an endorsement?
Yes, an endorsement to allow them to work under my guidance.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm trying.
Go for it. Awesome.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean,
Yeah.
and hopefully we can clean some of those balls on the river out.
Yeah,
'Cause
there's quite a few.
yeah.
Well, we appreciate your efforts, believe me.
I'm happy to help.
Good.
Yeah,
Thank you. Awesome.
it was a nice stay when we met you, so thank you.
I'll be in touch. We'll probably go down and take a look at Reynolds Landing this weekend and see how bad. I know probably a lot more deadfall has come down since the last time I
Yeah,
looked.
yeah.
With all the storms we've gotten, and I'll let you know how it looks and when we're thinking about going out and doing that work.
Good. And we're gonna keep a file, electronic file on communications, so anytime he sends me something by email, we'll cut and paste it and file it. And so we have a
Excellent.
record of exactly what they're doing.
Good.
Good. Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Would you take pictures of what you do?
Oh yeah, definitely for
Thank
sure.
you.
Yeah, I'll take pictures. I'll send them all over to John, and you guys can keep that for your records, whatever you need to do.
You get a smile every time. All set.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick.
And I think our administrative action and the rest of this meeting is longer than the public hearing part of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay. Well, might as well start with 200 Spring Street, grant conservation easement.
200 Spring Street, it was the Trojano application where he wanted to put a garage on, an addition and garage on his house,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was real close to the, or had already encroached into the buffer and so forth. So he agreed to give us a access easement from Spring Street along his property line to the Woodchuck Chase conservation parcel. And so that gives us a loop from North Elm Street through the Woodchuck Chase property, through his access easement on his property out to Spring Street. So it's a nice little loop. And so I drew up all the conservation documents, the easement documents, based on some of his concerns. He wanted certain stipulations made as to the use of the easement, and so I incorporated that in all of the easement. He got a chance to read it and approved it, so it's ready to go. Just needs, it's already been signed by Mr. Trojano, and if the commission is agreeable to taking on that easement, then I recommend having a vote to have Tim sign acknowledging that we'll accept it.
I'll entertain a motion to authorize me to sign.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. 22 Emerson Ave, request for certificate of compliance.
25.
Did I write the wrong number? You might re- it might-
25, sorry.
That was the old order of conditions to allow 25 Emerson to put in a septic system years ago before this current owner purchased the property. But no one ever got the certificate of compliance, so I'm recommending issuing it without a bond.
I'll entertain a motion to issue certificate of compliance.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. We have 322 East Center Street for,
Riverbend Apartments?
yep,
We received the as-built, and I did the inspection today, and for the most part, it is built the way it was designed, except for one spot, and it may sound kind of nitpicky, but as you enter into the complex on, and you may notice it when you drive by on 106, there's a swale with a bunch of trap rock berms that follow along the side of the road. Well, that was designed to collect runoff coming off the parking lot that didn't go into some of the bioretention basins and stop it from going out onto 106 into the town's drain system, which is right, there's a catch basin kind of opposite the one for your development. And it wasn't designed for all that water to go into it, which it has been. And I could only see it being a problem in the future when we start having to answer for all the stormwater, that why didn't it get put in? So they left the berm along the driveway entrance fully intact all the way out to the street so that the water can't leak off and get into that berm. So they need to put a scupper in there, and I wouldn't recommend issuing the certificate until that's done.
okay.
So if the commission votes not to issue it, I'll send them a letter stating
I
that.
will entertain a motion not to issue certificate of compliance and request that they put in the proper drainage.
I'll make a motion.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Number 12 is a Scotland Street. Wait a minute. Number 12.
225 South Elm.
Okay, well, yeah, 325 South Elm, the 61A release, which is a very small sliver of the project we've already been approving. I don't think we want to exercise our right to purchase it.
What they did is, there's two Alexander parcels. The one that got broke up into a bunch of house lots was the one of the parcels, and they didn't have enough frontage to make all the lots that they proposed. So they ended up trying to take a little sliver from the homestead of the Alexanders, which wasn't part of the development, and forgot the fact that it's under 61A also, and so it's a technicality. It's only a small piece of land that really has no value to the town, and I recommend that the commission vote to send a
Not
letter.
exercise.
The right. So I'll entertain a motion to request selectmen not to exercise the right to purchase.
I'll make a motion.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
I'll send a letter off then.
Scotland Street, Gachizet Estates.
This is for the ORAD that the commission issued for all of the wetland delineation, the floodplain, the riverbanks. And it's going to expire later on this year. It's not imminent, but it's a little bit later on. And so they wanted to get it extended before the deadline. And it's still a viable project. There's a lot of rumors going around why it's not progressing, but they're currently finishing up their DEP approval of the groundwater study that is necessary for siting the septic system. They've received a letter of map amendment to the FEMA floodplain, similar to what the people are going to do for Vitz Way. They took and did a study and was able to determine that the knoll that's out there between the last house and the river on Scotland Street, it sits up nice and high, that's where they want to put the septic. They determined, which probably didn't take a lot of effort, but determined that it was above the floodplain. So they've got that approved. I've got copies of that in the files, and they still have to come to before this commission anyway to get their drainage accepted, and also to show how they're compensating for getting out to the knoll, because even if it's out of the floodplain, trying to get over there to do maintenance on the septic system components out there, they'll need a roadway. And so they're filling the floodplain to get out there, and they'll have to show us how they're compensating for that loss by showing a storage area compensatory with what they're losing elsewhere on the site. So the commission, I'm recommending the commission grant a 1 year and make them come back if they're still being held up.
Yeah, I mean, especially considering with the way development is now, to give them, I noticed that it looks like they requested 3 years. But we've done a couple others recently that we've done just the 1 year, and that way we make sure we know what's going on, and
Keeps them up.
yeah, keeps them on their toes.
Yeah.
So I'll entertain a motion to grant a 1 year extension.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, and here's a fun one, so hopefully you all read your agenda. We have an appointment for our representative to the Community Preservation Committee. Jack Conley was our person that was there, and since he's no longer a member, we need to add a person to it. Do we have any volunteers that may want to serve? It's basically once a month or as needed.
What is it for?
The CPA.
CPA or
Yeah.
CPC?
Well, it's CPC for granting applicants that come before them for money that the town collects to go for either housing, historical preservation, land preservation.
Could say no.
It's sitting a board. We get a board seat on the commission, so we get to have a member there.
You know, I talked with Cheryl, the chairperson of the committee, and they usually don't start doing anything until around December of the year. So December through the end of May is usually when they will meet, and it's a Monday night, and they review the applications for people who have asked to use the CPA funds for a particular project. And so it takes this committee to hear what those proposals are, decide whether they are appropriate, and then vote to send an article to town meeting that would say they're going to use those funds. And so it's not a couple hours, I guess, on a Monday night, and it's not always every Monday night. It's as needed type thing. So it's an extra night out, but I can't say that it's every Monday night for the months of December through May.
Kind of based on how many applicants they get and how much money they have to spend.
Yeah, no, I know. I think for me it would conflict too much with.
Oh, you've got a lot on your plate.
With the nights and it isn't regular, what nights we pick.
I
So
could probably do it. Monday's a good
be
day.
interesting.
What
I
time
mean,
do
does
they
anybody
meet?
have a preference? I mean, I don't. My plate's full, so I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I'd like to, but my plate's too full.
What time do they meet?
I think it's like from 7 to
7.
9 or 7 to 8 or
Yeah.
something like that on a Monday night. That
My work schedule is going to be changing by summertime, so I have no idea what it's going to be like right now.
Yeah.
Mondays always seem to be kid activities, nice, different
Yeah.
sports.
There's nothing to say. You
see what
can
happens.
switch it
right. I was
out.
just gonna say. I mean, we could
Yeah.
You can see
always
after.
have an alternate, or
Yeah.
if
Right.
Yeah.
you
Oh, that's
decide that it's not something you want to do after.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
no,
You're
I-
busy.
I'll-
Yeah.
I'm actually, it's an interest of mine too, so
Good.
it's not that far out of there.
I'm fine.
I'll entertain a motion. We appoint Paula to
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
move and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Done.
Thank you, Paula. See, that wasn't too much of an arm twist.
I was thinking of it, I was gonna call John, so.
Well, we don't have to do the Ash Street Reynolds Landing. We've done that one.
Nothing to report on Scotland or South Street. I've just been straight out. And on 55 Crescent Street, we have quite a few years ago, we approved a rehab of a house that was at 55 Crescent Street. And it's in a perennial stream area, so it had a riverfront area. It also had the wetlands buffers, and so the commission approved the project with restrictions on what could be done with the property. And apparently from an anonymous tip that there's some tree cutting going on, and it's encroaching into the no-touch. And so to kind of be consistent with the policies, we've sent them letters, other people letters in the past to ask them to come in and explain themselves. And that's what I'm recommending on this.
So are they still cutting, or?
No, it's all done. It's just that it's noticeable because.
Oh,
There's a nice big open space now.
The White House?
No, the new little one that they put up.
Oh, yeah.
The same footprint they
Yeah.
put up. Actually, I was up there on Crescent Street. I was cutting up a tree, and I came by, and I'm like, they were just getting done. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm looking up back there. They had a machine out there, and I didn't see any
Those silt
silt
fences.
fence or
or-
anything like that.
Mm.
Yeah. By that time, it was too late.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right. So where are the wetland markers?
I was just looking for the
That's
silt
what they-
fence.
Right, the silt- right, I mean,
Silt
but-
fence, that would have been the wetland
Right.
marker for me.
Yeah, but there was nothing, and
But
so
then that time
I got a
it
phone
was
call,
gone.
and so I looked, and John looked, and I was like,
And I think they had originally planted a living
yeah, there was a
shrub fence type thing.
right as a. So
It was funny because I remember when they came in.
Is it a new construction?
Gonna change that lot
there
at all.
isn't,
Oh,
but
that one, okay.
because I know I
Oh, yeah,
I
I think
remember
that
saying
living
to him
fence, yeah.
specifically the same size house
Right.
on the same.
because didn't they come
foundation.
and ask, or didn't they put an inquiry in about putting a garage on at one
Yeah.
point?
Yeah.
And
And
they
we
couldn't
said
do it.
no,
No.
that wasn't.
Yeah.
That's right, they had some trees, they had some green evergreens going
Yeah.
down, and they think they all died,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I didn't even see that.
So,
So, send a
enforcement
letter?
letter.
I drive by it every day.
Yeah, they go by there
Yeah.
every day.
Which I don't know whether you want me to bring it up now or bring it up in the other section, but I have another one that we're gonna have to do as well.
Oh, let's do it.
129 Bedford Street, we just approved a septic
Mm-hmm.
redo on that one, and they did put the wetland flags up. However, it's on my 2-mile nightly dog walking path, so it jumps right out there. I'll pass it around. But they had a log clearing company come in, and all the trees they chipped right into the wetlands, right next to the markers, right next to the wetland flags. I mean, and it's like 7 or 8 80-foot pine trees just through the chipper and everything.
This is just temporary.
Yeah, that's just temporary.
On
Oh,
Bedford?
is that where those piles go that we just don't know where they are, right?
Is that
So
right?
Oh.
I was like, uh-oh.
Is that right by the new house?
Yeah, it's right in front of that new house
Yeah,
that they're
my
building in the
dog-
back.
Oh, my God.
It is.
Yeah, I was
Wouldn't
like,
mind taking some of those chips.
yeah, I mean, they're nice clean chips, but they blew them all right into the wetland
Quite a
line.
pile.
Natural.
So,
Gee, it's all natural.
Yeah, that's what we
but I
were
can't believe
thinking.
that, I mean, this is definitely not a homeowner doing this, it's
Yeah.
a tree company.
Yeah.
And you would think a tree company would have enough smarts to know
Oh.
that a pink flag is typically a wetland flag, and there's a marker right there with a disc on it that says protected, I mean,
It might be the tree company, but not the people that are working on it.
yeah, but I mean, so,
Well, I will say that on Saturday when we were at Holmes Hill burning the brush, we also could hear a chainsaw and a machine working. And the abutter farther south, heading on 4th Street, south on 4th Street, after you go up around the bend, the first house on the left, was having some trees cut down.
Oh, right on the, yeah, right there, having the trees cut down on the, yeah.
So we were walking down the paths that are on Holmes Hill because we have a dirt biker out there as well doing some damage to the trails. And we noticed the trees were, some of them were cut and laying over into the conservation land. So I walked over and asked the tree guys whether they were planning to remove those out of there or just leave them there. And they said, well, our contract was just to cut them down. So I'm going to have to talk to the owner of the property and have them tell us how they're going to dispose of the slash and all the debris that they have left there on the conservation land. Some of it's on theirs, but some of it's on the conservation land. And again, it's all natural materials and things, but it's not what our management plan is for that parcel, to have piles of debris, tree or whatever, left on the property. So I'll add that to the list.
Another one to the list. Scotland Street, Date, Crescent Street, DCPR Board of Selectmen memo is the next thing you had on the...
Yep, the Board of Selectmen issued a letter, a memo, I'm sorry, outlining the original intent and clarifying some of the activities of the DCPR. And I don't know if everybody got a copy of it or not. I sent a memo to the Board of Selectmen asking them to, that if I interpreted their memo correctly as far as what is the DCPR. Is it an actual department? It doesn't have a budget. It doesn't have a line item in the town, so Conservation Commission is paying for any of the activities that the DCPR does. So it's an unfunded mandate by the Board of Selectmen. So with limited amount of time that the Conservation Administrator has and doing some other duties for the DCPR, I want to get some clarification from the Board of Selectmen on how much time we can expect to be taken from conservation duties, because there are quite a few administrative duties that need to be done by law that probably take precedent over anything that DCPR does. So I want to get a good handle on that because we need to be able to decide exactly how we're going to handle the conservation administrative duties going forward. We seem to be getting busier. We only have limited hours to work, and so I want to have a good handle on that. So what I would like to do is recommend having an executive session to bring out the particulars about what I'm concerned about in an executive session at an upcoming meeting.
Okay.
At that point, we may have direction about the Board of Selectmen and if this is something that's a new line item budget they want to look at, or whether we're supposed to figure how to line item a budget under the conservations for this as hours for a DCPR coordinator under the Conservation Commission's line item. I mean, if they're willing to fund 8 hours or 7 hours or 6 hours a week, a month, or whatever they feel and we feel we need to figure out what that is, then.
So it's a little late probably this year because the budget's already been submitted and been thrashed around by the selectmen and the FinCom. But maybe there's some type of fund that the board, if the Board of Selectmen feel that they want to fund this, maybe they have money,
mechanism to
some type of reserve account. I don't know. Probably you know better mode, whether there are those things or not. But I think it needs to be discussed and needs to be determined, because there's mixed.
Can I, when you get
Sure.
done?
There's mixed signals as to, what this really means, and so I asked them to clarify it, and I specifically asked them questions. I haven't got that back yet, but I will.
Thank you.
All right,
Lincoln Street?
Lincoln Street?
Next Wednesday at 1 o'clock, there's a meeting with representatives, I believe the name is Coparts. And it's a national large company that builds huge parking lots on land and stores cars that are been used, salvaged, and it's large. And they want to take that Hasiotis land and develop it into this vehicle storage area. It's not like Enterprise Rent-A-Car where they're new vehicles.
That are clean and up to date and,
And so I don't know anything more than that. We were supposed to have a meeting this afternoon at 1 o'clock, and that's why I put it on the agenda, so that the information could be brought to you this evening, and now I won't know until next Wednesday after 1 o'clock. So I wanted to alert you to the fact that there's that possibility that that all of that Lincoln Street farmland will become a parking lot with cars on it.
Salvage yard.
It's a visible thing right off the highway too that people will be seeing.
So I wasn't listening to the beginning. What was the first thing you said?
It's they want to have a vehicle storage
yard.
Really?
Yeah.
On that 64 acres,
Yeah.
or whatever it is?
Yikes.
Go down to the air base.
Yeah.
They got thousands of cars in there.
I believe they were trying to do this on Elm Street in Bridgewater, which is what Scotland Street turns
becomes.
into when you cross over the river. And for some reason, they were not able to do it there. I don't know what makes them think they're going to be able to do it on this one, but
Beautiful piece of land.
it's
I'd rather have seen that development of the
Yeah.
shopping center area, but no.
Millions of
so we'll see
cars.
where it goes. It's a department head meeting where all of the different departments will have their say as to what they think are concerns. Ours is primarily, it's in a habitat, estimated habitat of rare endangered species and the wetlands. And you're going to be having to abide by stormwater bylaws. And one of their big, they try to promote the fact that they do not impervious parking areas, it's all gravel. So
worse.
how do you handle
Yeah.
stormwater when it's all gravel?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's really the right thing, but
These are like new cars they want to.
No,
these
salvage
old
cars.
salvage
Oh
cars.
my God.
Yeah. Environmental
I think it used to be
waste
called
site
junkyard.
waiting to
See over
happen.
to the air base.
Yeah.
See how many cars they got over there.
it's like an auction yard.
Yeah.
So that,
Oh.
say for example, Joe's Auto Body
Yeah.
down the street
Yeah.
wants to go in and bid on,
Everett's.
Parts car.
Everett's Auto Body.
well, I don't know if it's that extreme, but similar.
Yeah.
American Auto Auctions over in Taunton has a similar type thing, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same class of car, where these may be more salvage vehicles that have been totaled, maybe not a lot of damage, but value-wise, it may have been totaled, and somebody can bid on it. And in the meantime, it sits there, and who knows what's going
Yeah,
into the
right.
ground.
Spring Street, Spring Commons?
Spring Street, Spring Commons has been suggested that the 6 lots that were originally approved is too expensive to build because of all the fill and retaining walls and everything. And so they're looking at coming in with a shortened road and fewer house lots, maybe, if I recall correctly, three?
I think it's 3.
Three.
That's Jack.
Yeah. But this would be
That's a big
a
difference.
new filing. It wouldn't be an amended
No.
because there's too many changes on it to let it just be a.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, so it's not a minor change to a plan, so we'll be seeing that one again. I think it's document signing time.
Okay.
And while Kitty's pulling the documents, I was handed tonight, and it's in the Enterprise, there's new rules for dog owners to keep them restrained in wildlife management areas, which it looks like the Hockomock Swamp, West Meadows are 2 areas that
It's all natural stuff.
yeah, could be, but if anybody wants to, I would suggest going to the Enterprise website
It's in tonight's paper.
or looking at tonight's paper because it's quite an article.
It's been approved by Fish and Wildlife, but it hasn't been signed by the Secretary of Environmental Affairs yet.
Is it because it's been, what, a lot of people have just been in there with their animals?
Just letting them roam loose,
Because they're
not
pooping
under
everywhere.
control in wildlife management areas. So
And is it for a reason to protect the pets because of the wildlife, or
Both.
it's both? Okay.
It's half
In
and
case
half.
there's like a coyote in there and attacks. and
Right.
he's-
Yeah.
or a hunter that's hunting and your
Oh.
dog runs through, and all of a sudden it's
Or you take the
open
family
season.
out and they step in poop.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reasons.
That's
Not in the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
What about
Oh,
the deer?
no.
Organic.
Yeah, but what about the coyotes? I mean, you're gonna step in
I
that.
know.
So I mean,
What about
yeah.
these turkeys that roam free?
That's free poop. Okay,
That's a lot of-
this is the Mason bill. Oh, did you wanna do Bishop? Extension on, for the 40B, did we do that one?
Yep.
Oh, good, because it's written here, I got it.
I think we have Grant Street, 102 West, Lincoln,
Roadway.
Emerson, Luke Estates.
Everything's tagged.
Everything's tagged.
Let's not break the bank.
Big one, huh?
Yeah.
Missing any, or?
Seven there.
Two. States. Yep, should be good.
When people sign, it gets very quiet.
You guys have had a busy day in the office.
Guess
I'm
so.
like, holy cow.
Occasionally, I've had to go to a town hall and talk to a conservation agent for my part-time job
That's just a
that I
letter
have.
that came.
And I go to the desk and the administrative person says, well, they're not available today. And then I realize it's their meeting night, and they're busy working, and they're not available for somebody to just go in and ask a couple of questions. Maybe I don't wanna get to that point, but it's, you know, people do come to the office a lot during the day, and
Yeah.
it's important for them to be able to have.
Things are getting busier and busier.
Yep.
But at least on that day, they still have the option to come in and
still have an
hearing
intern?
us too. They don't need to have you.
No.
We never had an intern.
You know, we could just
Oh, it
say,
was
well, we're gonna be
the,
here, and if you wanna
selectmen.
ask.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or we can sometimes say, we'll give you an appointment if you
Yeah.
come back, but I hope that we can keep.
Anything
it.
else? Anything else? Anyone?
Thank you for taking
Hearing
that.
none, I will
CPC.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
Do I- should I
I'll
contact
make the
them?
motion.
Moved and seconded.
I'll
All those in favor?